Hey, Decathlon gamer, welcome back to F1 Manager. This is episode 37. Next up for us is the Hungarian Grand Prix, and a year ago we were 2 laps down, 16th and 17th. Not a good performance. I think this is the stage of the season where we started to get well clear of Aston Martin and approach the other teams, but we still were some ways off the pace. This year, let's see what the track is like first to decide kind of where we think we'll be, because last race didn't turn out to be that great for us. Uh, for here, lot of slow sections, a lot of them. We are better than we were, but we're not there yet. Now, we had some new parts. I have not gone in to check to see how many of those are ready to get on one or both cars this weekend. That will be a big indicator of whether we're improving, especially because some of the new upgrades are tied to slow speed sections. That slow cornering has been a great weakness of ours, and this is not a track that suits that. So I would think we're not well suited to this track and will struggle. But we'll check on the car and see what sort of upgrades there might be ready to go manufacturing wise, and if that can improve our performance. In the meantime, at least we have a decent amount of cash, 16 million, so we're going to spend 12 of that on the new simulator. From here, even though I do want to get that design center on the go, I think for a while after this we're going to spend money on refurbishments. We have a few facilities that are dropping. You can see the simulator is about to anyway, so getting into this next upgrade is going to help deter that issue. So that's two big upgrades on the way, and they're going to help with the efficiency of the work we actually do on the car to make it better, faster. And you can see what we're going to get, downforce alone, what a significant gain we're going to get performance-wise in each upgrade that we apply to the car in the future. Two parts are ready, so the two that we had ready about a week and a half ago, at least the first one of each, so we've got them both onto Albon's car for now. So here is where Albon's car sits compared to grid average, and we're looking almost average finally. I mean, we really are getting there. We're competitive where we were miles behind last season. Last season at this point, we were still miles behind. It was just Aston Martin that we were finally comparative to and starting to pull away from a little bit. But top speed still some ways short of the average, but we're not massively far off like before. Same with the acceleration. It's very marginal, the difference. Low speed, we're still behind, but it's not by a wide margin. We've really caught up here recently, and we've actually pulled ahead now in medium speed cornering. We're definitely ahead in high speed cornering as well. And that, I think, if you average that out, cornering is right about midfield or just better than it. So speed is just below, where cornering is just above midfield, just above average. DRS still below what everybody else does, but you can see acceleration-wise with DRS is now equal to the grid average. And while we're still behind in the dirty air cornering for low speed by a percentage point, that overall, again, is on the right side. It's not only that 2 out of 3 are better, but it's the margin, right? It's 2% better here. It is 1.5% better here, where we're 1% worse there. So that does add up to definitely a net positive of better than grid average when it comes to dirty air cornering, which means we can follow cars a little bit better than others can. And that's one area that has been good for us, because that DRS has really made up for the lack of overall pace when we're alone. And, we've seen that. It's so evident in the races that DRS makes a huge impact. If we take the last race, for example, we had that situation where we were in a train with Albon of fast cars, and Porsche was caught a little further back in traffic, and as we made our way through, the train split up. Porsche ended up the front of the chasing train, and they just slowly dropped off further and further and further and further as he missed that DRS zone. But Albon kept up. Now, each driver eventually made a mistake. In Porsche's case, he caught back up to the trailing pack, but it took him 20 to 30 laps. In the case of Albon, when he lost that train, he continually lost time. Yes, it was a faster train, but he continually lost time and never recovered from that. So his pace while driving easy, conserving, that DRS was very powerful. That's how it is in real life. That is how it is in real life. It does not just make overtakes easy. With the new design of the cars this year, where it's easier to follow another car, getting into that DRS zone and maintaining it and staying in that train, you see a lot more of that. The one area where we still lag behind is the brake cooling and engine cooling. However, we were like 45%. I think it was about 44%, to be more exact, on both of the brake and engine cooling at the start of the year. We've already brought that up by about 10%. It's still 5% short of where everybody else is. Some people in the comments have mentioned that they don't think it's actually relevant, that it doesn't really do anything in the current state of the game. May or may not. The other stuff is very evident. That one I haven't worried about as much, but we've picked up 10% without giving it a whole lot of effort, without worrying about it too much. I just want to kind of get it towards grid average, and we'll focus on other things like the cornering. It's still trying to get rid of that drag that hurts us so much, but we're much closer to average now. Comparing with another car, another team, Aston Martin, better at everything now. We are significantly quicker than the Aston Martin, and that's been quite obvious. When it comes to Haas, we're still not clear of Haas. We're ahead in more areas, but it's almost balanced. That's really the state of where we're at, right? Haas is near the back of the grid, race after race, and we find ourselves fighting much higher up the grid. But there's times we are fighting with them. There's times that we are struggling to keep up with them, and it becomes track-specific type scenarios. They're really not that far off pace. McLaren is another one, right? We might have matched acceleration now, and we're better in a couple areas, and on the right track it shows, and we are, well clear of them or past them easily. But you can see just how tight it is other than Aston Martin. AlphaTauri is another one. We're only just marginally better in a few places. But one thing that stands out is cornering. We are definitely better than the AlphaTauri at cornering, but they have the pace advantage, the straight line speed. Now, the team that we have been comparing with this season, Alpine, well, here's that comparison. We're nowhere near. Our medium speed cornering and DRS acceleration, which is only equal, by the way, we're not even ahead. Those are the only areas where we actually even compare. So there's that real direct comparison of we're not better than Alpine at virtually anything. But we've closed the gap, and we have, medium speed cornering advantage over Alpine. That's it. That is why, on a regular basis, just keeping up with them is a pretty big struggle for us. Now, you look at the numbers themselves, we're not that far behind. We're close to Alpine. Like across the board, we're close to Alpine. But it's a deficit here, there, almost everywhere that adds up. It adds up. So when we push, we can just about keep up with them, but we can't really beat them in a head-to-head. If they have a bad race, if they make bad strategy calls, we beat them. If we have a mistake, no chance. If it's just pure head-to-head, they're going to beat us every race. And that is why even just the fact that we're sitting sixth is a bit of a miracle, because when you compare to those teams, we compare to those teams behind us. we don't compare to this team ahead of us in any significant way. They are much better. So to even be close to Alpine, to be well clear of those teams behind us, it's a little bit of a miracle. We're going to have to keep pushing to hold that sixth position, especially when just about done with upgrades for this year, which means we're not going to be catching up to Alpine. I think, sixth place is the best we can hope for at this stage, because we're going to start putting that emphasis into next year's car, which is what we did last year, and it paid off really well as we made some serious move up the grid order by focusing on the research quite a bit. We're going to do the same thing for this season going forward. We've made that big progress. We've made continual progress throughout the season to actually really compare with those teams that are behind us. So now we can at least race them and just out-strategize them and push and get those points. And if we're equal with those teams the rest of the season, the board won't always be happy because we're not going to always have a 7th place. Like last race, I think we were 8th. But they shouldn't be gaining on us, right? They're not going to score significant points. They're not going to beat Alpine. They're not going to beat Alfa Romeo. They're not going to beat those front 3 teams. So if there's 5 teams consistently taking 8 or 9 positions out of the top 10, then we've got 3-4 teams fighting for the scraps, getting the leftovers, the AlphaTauris, the McLarens, the Haas, us. So really 4 teams kind of fighting for 8th, 9th, 10th place race after race, and realistically fighting for 11th more often than not, unless somebody in that top 10, 1, 2, 3 drivers has an issue or a bad race, bad strategy call somewhere, opening that doorway for those 4 teams to fight for those leftover scraps. I'm okay with that being what our season looks like kind of the rest of the way. We're past halfway, and we want to build for the future. We are smashing our goals for this year, with the only exception being next year's goal of scoring points 50% of the time. We are still on rate for that, but we are right at 50%. And if we don't make upgrades the rest of the way, we're probably going to fall below that 50%. We'll score points again 2, 3, 4 times more, but the 6 times more that we need or 5 times more that we need, I don't know if that's going to happen. We're going to be on the outside looking in quite a few times. We got 12th last race. I'll be surprised if we get that again this race based on the track. This track does not suit our car, so there's a very good chance that, we'll be better than last year, but it might be a 13th, 15th type race. Let's go ahead and get into the race.
The Hungaroring is abuzz with excitement as Formula One returns to Hungary for another round. We first came here in 1986 after construction on this purpose-built motorsport facility was completed. The Hungaroring is one challenging succession of corners and turns. With few straights, it's affectionately known as the go-kart circuit. Drivers will have to find a proper rhythm to make the most of the layout, and for cars, low-speed downforce will be paramount. We're about halfway through the season now, and there's still plenty of time for everything to change. All eyes are on the teams and how they tackle the rest of the year. The competition is on.
Checkered flag for practice, and Porsche has gotten that 15-15 with a 97% setup. Albin, pretty close, but he's got 2 areas that are holding him back. He's got 2 new parts on the car, up to 81%. Track acclimatization, of course, missing that first session at 73%, but he's also got that 97% confidence. So with that, we're looking pretty good at getting, 13 or 14 for Albin, but with 2 upgrades on the car, we'll see how much faster they actually are. So Albin's was actually 98%, but that's still, the combination of the 3 adds up to a 13 out of 15 on his bonuses. So braking only a +2 instead of a +3, reactions +2 instead of a +3. You can see, the quality in all of those numbers, including accuracy being +80 for this race. Meanwhile, with Porsche, there's still a few 70s in his midst. Definitely some things we want to bring along, but at least those reactions are starting to come along. Bases is 73 now. New engines in both cars this week. We still have a little bit of practice usage out of the second engine, but engines are doing pretty well this season. We may avoid penalties, maybe have to take a penalty once. The ERS might just make it to the end of the season, but maybe not. We're on to that second one now. And then gearbox wise, I do think we'll take a penalty at one point this season. But that's going to be pretty good if we get both cars to have a single drop to the back of the grid penalty for new engines and gearboxes that we would obviously take on at the same time, just to bump us back that single occasion. And that's a good way to not only save money, but that's a good way to never have to really start from the back, besides maybe once this year. And we're lining up for that banker lap. Gasly got out of the box before I clicked the button the moment we started, but nobody in our way, so it's going to be a clean run for all four of these guys. Issues like last week as a result. Albon, a bit ahead. Gasly in the Alpine, we're not far behind, and that's good because this is a track that really does not look to suit us, and we've got a good second advantage over the Aston Martins. We've come a long ways in 1 year. With all 15 having finished their first runs, Perez was held up for sure. Other than that, Hamilton, Ocon, maybe Alonso looked like they might have been held up at least slightly, a handful of tenths. Pourchaire was definitely not held up, but the difference, that 1.5 tenths between Pourchaire and Albon, is 6 positions. That's a pretty hefty gap between them. It's also not much of a cushion between the out in Q1 versus making Q3. It's really close field between 4th and 17th, but really 18th because Perez is one of those. Starting to get a lot of guys out there, so we are going to want to get going before too long. We also need to watch out for the fact that one of the Aston Martins is way ahead of everybody else, and we do not want him getting around to a point where he is going to impact our second run. So I'm going to have Albon go out a little bit earlier, as he is comfortably P7 right now. We'll try to get him maybe right behind the Mercedes here. The AlphaTauri sneaking right into that spot that I wanted. He's still waiting to get out there, still has not found an opening. We'll get Pourchaire also coming out. Okay, we are behind the second Aston Martin and behind ourselves, and it looks like we might be, no, not even the last two out there. Both Alfa Romeos and the Haas cars, or one Haas car, are behind us, and we will not have to worry about the Aston Martin coming along and getting out of the way. But our spacing is good. It looks like there was hesitation. They do wait for an opening, and that's good, because that's something I haven't really tested. The Aston Martin is coming up on the Haas right at the end of the lap, but it looks like he's timed that just about right, and he has. So he will get out of the way, no interference. Everybody's going to get a clean run in this time. And let's look for those sector times. How we're doing. Verstappen, Leclerc are the fastest two. Perez, yellow in sector 2, so he's not improving by much. Tsunoda, first one to finish. All we really need to do is beat 3 cars to get out of Q1, because the Aston Martins are second off the pace. One of them's already finished their lap. That was Stroll, and he's still 20th. He's on his in-lap right now. He just haven't crossed the line before 0. So we're ahead of Tsunoda. That's 3. We only need to get ahead of 2 more. Albon is ahead of 3, so Albon's already good. And now it's going to be all about Pourchaire. And Pourchaire up to P14, he'll be okay. He's ahead of Ocon and Tsunoda. But not Alonso. Magnussen could still ruin Pourchaire's day, and he does not. So Haas, 9th quickest, and Ocon in the Alpine is only 16th. Albon P9 here in Q1 has a chance at Q3 for sure, but can he replicate what he's done? He was somehow ahead of Sainz. Also, by the way, there are 5 cars 5 with penalties for this race. And for us, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, and Vettel are going to be key to that. Bottas maybe as well. Leclerc, I don't know how many penalties he's going to be carrying, but yeah, you would imagine he'll still start in front of us. Into Q2, we've got 5 cars going for that early banker lap. Let's make sure nobody else pulls out here in the next little bit. Leclerc and Gasly both do. They're going to get in our way. Yep, Gasly does. I think we got a clean pass on Gasly. Albon did not, though. I don't know about Leclerc for Porsche. I know Albon got by at the right time, but both of us are half a second down, which is definitely more than what we were in Q1. We were about 4/10 behind. So far, slower than everybody. However, faster than Gasly. So that first one was on used tires. We're going to try again here very quickly on another used set as early as possible. It's still 8 minutes. It's only a minute 17 lap, so we have plenty of time to get this lap in. Verstappen with a lockup on his lap really messes up his time. And you can see the only ones behind us right now are the ones that were held up on their laps. So P11 and P12 through the first run. Will our second run be better? And we definitely have enough time. Still 5 minutes as we cross. Porsche up to P9, so that is a better time for him. Still behind the McLarens, though. And Albon, P4. Oh, what a lap from Albon there. And again, both of them were on used tires that time. You figure most of the field was. We need to get back around and set ourselves up for one more run on the clean set. 4 minutes, even if the field starts pulling out, we will have enough time. Porsche for sure. Albon, yes, nobody's even started to pull out yet, so we're okay. Gasly first to pull out. Verstappen, Bottas. Both McLarens are going early, so that's good for us. We do not need to wait till the very end now that we know it will pull a gap. Almost waited too long. There are 5 cars out there. We are a little bit off the back of Sainz on this one, but we have 1 minute left, and we're definitely on the back end of the lap, of the warm-up lap. Couple corners to go. 30 seconds. We make it easily. Porsche is definitely the one with more work to do here. But Porsche is yellow in Sector 1. Albon is green. Leclerc has already crossed the line. But P14, a little confused by that. Ricciardo, P12. Maybe Leclerc just didn't come out running because he knew he was going to be at the back of the grid. Could be. Ricciardo is ahead. Vettel is ahead. But Albon's ahead of both of those. So Albon's got a great shot. He is P11 right now. He's going to have to improve his time. Gasly was first out, so don't worry about him. We are the last 2 running. It is going to require a better time from both to move up. Porsche. Looks like that might be enough to better his time, but not by a lot. I would imagine he's still out. Albon definitely improves. Albon P8. Porsche improved, theoretically, but did not improve his position. So it was marginal at best. So that's P14 for Porsche, and Albon makes Q3 on merit. In Porsche's case, you got Ricciardo and Vettel right ahead, both with penalties, so you know for sure he'll move ahead. That's going to be a P12 starting position for Porsche, if not better. Bottas also carrying a penalty. He's still going to be running in Q3. Albon out on a double used set from Q1 to get a banker lap in, and it's a pretty decent lap. He's 2/10 down on Guan Yu Zhou. He's just behind Sainz. That's definitely competitive. I do need to remember that there's only 10 cars here, and there's 1 or 2 that may not make additional runs. So we want to get out there after about 4 to 5 cars and then just see what Albon can do. Right now he is P10. He is slowest, but Bottas and Sainz are both just ahead of us. Guan Yu Zhou is still possibly a reach. Norris, though, putting in a heck of a time. And there is 4, 5, 6 cars. Let's go ahead and go now. That's 7th in line. And we ride on board with Albon as he goes to make that flying lap here in Q3. It's nice to be here, and it's nice to be here completely on merit. Nobody made mistakes. Nobody had complications. Albon just had enough pace to be in the top 10. I think this is our first Q3 appearance under normal circumstances. Not looking terribly quick, though, at the moment. We'll see how the lap turns out as the shootout is coming to an end. There's that checkered flag, and time is better. It's P7. It's better than 2 cars. So Sainz and Zhou behind us, 1 millisecond ahead of Carlos Sainz. Ferrari really off the pace here this weekend. I don't think they've had too many upgrades for a while. They have noticeably fallen back from those top 2 teams, as the Alfa Romeo have noticeably not dropped back, but Bottas, quick this week. Very wide array of teams throughout the field here. A little worried about Norris's pace and what that can do for McLaren, but we are right there with the Alpine. We are ahead of a lot of cars. It's going to be a P8 for Albon, which is a heck of a starting grid spot.
Welcome to race day. And before we get down to it, last-minute checks are being made.
Qualifying went well for Williams, as attested by their strong position on the grid. Now it's all about finding that edge for the race itself. Alpine demonstrated a lot of grit during qualifying here, and will be hoping that the hard work pays off when it comes to the race. And the clouds today look very ominous, which means that teams may have to contend with rain at some point during the race.
Well, as we can see, the crowd here at the Hungaroring are ready and waiting. So let's get this show underway.
Expected strategy, it's going to take about 28 laps before the expected rain will come. We don't know for sure if it will come. It could take a little while longer before it begins to fall and pushes us into the need for the intermediate tires. But that means we need to conserve the mediums, not push. We're not going to go on hards. I think that you can stretch the mediums just long enough if necessary, but we're definitely not going to pit until the rain falls. That part's key. But then it's light rain expected throughout. There's one little period for a lap or two where it's expected to get a bit more intense. We are going to stay away from the full wets, assuming that we're not already at 3.5 throughout here, and that suddenly bumps us up to like 6 millimeters or something, and then knowing that it could take a long time before that dries back out enough. But intermediates will not make it to the end. They can make it pretty far, so you could expect a lot of cars to not pit until somewhere around lap 58 to 62. And it looks like it's going to dry out in the final laps. But unless that happens early, and unless we are already hovering on just about dry enough, we should not need to go to softs at the end. But there's your good reason to have softs available, just in case, because a handful of laps on softs, 5's not enough. Pit stop and then 5 laps, losing 3 seconds a lap, it's 15 seconds. It's going to need to be something more like 8 laps, where it's going to be 3 seconds, 4 seconds a lap, 5 seconds a lap faster, something like 8 laps before the end, for it to stop raining, to think about going to the soft compound. Other thing is, we're going to go a little light on fuel to make up for the fact that we're not able to push, assuming that when that rain comes, it's going to make fuel a little bit of an easier issue. We're only going to go light by 1 lap, though, as since the update, managing fuel has definitely been a bigger challenge, so we don't want to have to ease off too much as we go along. But definitely going light on fuel by a little bit seems like a very doable thing and should help with that pace. So between being on mediums and being a little light on fuel, it should help make up for the fact that we cannot afford to push more than the first half lap to a lap or so.
It's a somewhat overcast day for the drivers, who've now taken position on the grid. Here we have Alexander Albon. They might not be in the top 3 spots, but things could change fast once the race gets underway. And looking at the second Williams car. They're starting in the bottom half of the grid today, so there's a lot of cars between them and the podium. Everything's been building to this. And here we go, with the Hungarian Grand Prix. It's lights out, and away we go.
Race underway from P7 and P11. Bottas had a huge penalty. It drops him all the way back to P17. Leclerc down to last place, as both taking on big-time new parts. So really good starting grid position, but Ocon already passed Pourchaire. Pourchaire 3 wide here, 3 wide for Pourchaire. Meanwhile, Albon is caught on the outside of a 3 wide grouping now, and for the moment is down to P9. Not a great start from either car, but at least it's not, you know, P19 sort of thing. Albon recovering, pushing on that a little bit longer. Pourchaire as well, so they're back up into their starting grid positions of P7 and P11. That's good, especially considering we're on the mediums. I do see a number of cars on the soft compound, and Albon having a look on the inside of Russell. It becomes the outside, but he might have himself an overtake against the Mercedes. And the Mercedes definitely looks to be the second quickest car this weekend, so that's fantastic if he can complete that move. For now, he does not have it, but Pourchaire has gotten around Magnussen and is up into P10. Albon finishes the move. Okay, that is 1 lap, and that is us backing off.
Lico, increase, please.
Gonna settle in. Positions could drop, but again, we have an important task of conserving now until the rain comes. So not much defense is going to be applied. We're going to let these guys run for a while. Let's go ahead and speed things up. Pourchaire just got fastest lap. Nice. A little bit of attack. Now, right now, the 2 Red Bulls are the only ones pulling away. We are in a train led by Hamilton. Second one, yellow flag, somebody locked up. That is a Ferrari. Sainz joining his teammate at the back of the grid. 2 Ferraris, P19 and P20. That's not something you're used to seeing. And Sainz well off the pace at the moment. He's already 4 seconds behind his teammate. And we've got a big train behind us opening up. Pourchaire falling back quickly and involved in a 3 wide here. Now 2 wide. He's kind of just holding these guys up. Let's let one of them anyway slip by. Let's see if they can't lead us back forward to the front group. But we're not going to push. Certainly not now. Oh, big lockup from Pourchaire. Pourchaire crashed in FP1. What are you waiting for? Come on.
And that's the lockup.
Waits for every single car to drive by before rejoining, even though there's, 5 seconds in between Leclerc and Sainz. That's only 2.5. I guess they're catching up pretty quick. But Pourchaire, with that lockup, goes from 10th to miles behind. Albon gets around Norris into P5, battling back and forth at least. I want to keep an eye on our fuel. Our fuel is improving. So running neutral on this track is gaining fuel. So Verstappen.
Let's see
what my goodness.
There. Now here we see Max Verstappen.
Yeah, he was running away with this race. Locks up, overruns the corner, and puts it into the tire barrier. Verstappen back on track and running P16 at the moment, but it looks like he's got a smashed up wing as Albon is having another look to the inside here. And that is P4 for the moment because Verstappen is going out of the picture and we just passed Norris. So we are running P4. Gasly is 2.5 seconds behind. So we are right near the front of this train as you got Norris answering back here. Perez and Hamilton are pulling away in those front two positions. Verstappen in the pits. His race is very much compromised with the new wing.
And there's an overtake from
Expect
Williams.
him to get back up into the points at some stage, but not back into challenging for a podium position, you think, as he is well behind. And he's 18 seconds behind Leclerc. He's more than 2/3 of a lap down on his teammate. Albon is able to easily get around Gasly there and actually pull off quite a gap. He's nearly a second ahead. More than a second ahead. Oh, are we going to run away into P3 for a little bit here? Gasly doesn't have the pace to get back at us. He is holding that gap. Porsche with a lockup. Second mistake already. Oh, he's having a rough race. Yellow flag. Ocon with a big mistake. Either a spin or a lockup there. It's a spin. Ocon has spun, and that drops him back out of that train. And we're seeing Perez is pitting here on lap 16. How many? That's one thing we have not checked. How many cars are running the softs? So many cars are running the softs. Hamilton and I look like we're the only ones that are going to make it until the point of the rain. You're going to see the soft compound runners pitting very, very soon. Even Porsche is going to find himself back in contention here. Perez and Verstappen both on hard compound. %35 chance of rain according to our forecast, which is still at 70% effectiveness at this stage. Still have 4 runners on the soft compound. They're about to drop below 50%. You would imagine they will pit fairly soon, but they're definitely going later than the other early runners. That whole back end is all on hard compound now, besides Porsche
That's a good overtake from Alpine.
and Schumacher. Okay, that rain prediction is getting close. Lap 24. Alonso, Magnussen, Ocon, Ricciardo are going to fall off the cliff very soon as those soft tires are down into the 30% range. The 4 guys on the softs, Ocon and Ricciardo, are definitely starting to go backwards. Alonso going backwards. And the rain begins to fall. Rain begins to fall. Not enough yet to pit, but it could be by the next lap around. Nobody's going to pit this time. And coming up on that 1.0. And there it is.
Seems to be quite slippery.
So Albon hopefully will get back out in clean air in P2. There's the Mercedes ahead of us, having already pit. 2 cars staying out on track. Bottas and Russell will go around again. Albon done 2.6, but he holds up. He holds up. He's held up. He's held up twice, and he's back out and going. He will resume from P5. P5. Moisture out there to keep going. Porsche enters the pits. He is surrounded by other cars that are also pitting. He gets held up for a little moment, but not long. It was the Red Bull.
Yes.
We're right behind Verstappen. Porsche is just behind Verstappen. Verstappen P18. And we've caught Hamilton, who was caught behind Bottas. Both of those guys just now entering the pits, so we're going to leave them well behind. and that is Albon in P2, right behind right behind the race leader, Lewis Hamilton. And the two of them have a pretty healthy gap. Alonso and Magnussen now running P3 and P4. Great position for the Haas. Continuing on here, lap 29, and you're seeing a number of cars coming out of the pits. Bottas coming out just ahead of Vettel. Russell is stuck behind the two. That's going to hold him up quite a bit. And then Perez, Sainz, and you've got Leclerc. They're moving their way up into the points now, the both of them, as Leclerc back out on track in P10. Gasly cutting off Ricciardo there, and Norris all the way down in P13 after he was up there with us, was he not? Verstappen all the way down in P14, recovering from his broken wing, his crash earlier, and Porsche settles into P15. Not a huge improvement from where he was by any stretch of the imagination, but if we continue to push on, you can see Porsche, at least for now, staying with Verstappen. We don't know if Verstappen has any other damage besides that which he took on the front wing, which needed replacing. Is he off pace, or is Porsche with the push able to stay with him? But as for kind of that race situation with everybody now on those intermediates, in terms of position to the race leader, Hamilton and Albon running 1-2. Albon keeping him under pressure here.
Yeah, we can easily overtake.
And we are into the lead.
Okay.
Into the lead. Then doubly so. Either they're going to A, have to pit and lose that 25-30 seconds to put on the softs and try to go to the end that way, or B, the tires are going to overheat massively down the stretch as a result, and we're slowly stretching out on Hamilton. We're now half a second ahead. So we're not really driving away from Hamilton at all, but Alonso has lost a second over the last few laps. So we are pushing them back. Bottas, who was at 19, is now over 20, though just. So we are slowly getting away from those guys. And if we continue to open that gap, we're looking at a pit stop that would bring us out in 4th place. Can benefit from pushing harder, pitting earlier, and splitting that stint up a bit, and it's going to generally give us more pace, especially after that time that we pit compared to everybody else. Fuel load, almost neutral on both cars. Porsche, meanwhile, has closed back up on Ocon, slowly but surely, but there's a pretty healthy gap to those cars. We were so close. We were only a handful of seconds behind them. Leclerc has pulled away from that group. Hamilton definitely able to follow in our slipstream, though, staying close. The rain did not stop, by the way. It did continue on. But the track just barely in that damp category. Looking at the gap to leader, because we are paying attention to where that kind of pit window takes us. For one thing, Porsche, not looking good. I mean, we're going to come back out around the Aston Martins by the time we pit. So he's going to be about a lap down by the time he makes his pit stop. But Albon, meanwhile, and we're going to have to push when we get up to those guys to try to make our way up through them. So that's going to be interesting. That'll allow us to focus on Porsche for a little bit, I guess. Go ahead and bring in Porsche this lap. See, we're halfway through that tire life. Oh, Porsche on his in lap, locks up. Fourth mistake of the day for him. .693, not as good of a stop, but we should definitely be out in 5th place. That is a lapped car. That's an Aston Martin. We are behind Bottas, but actually a lot closer than I expected to be to Bottas at this stage. Just 18.4 seconds behind. So we lost less than 19 seconds on pit road there. And then Albon, on his outlap, immediately locks up. Ay, dude. Fourth mistake of the day for Porsche, and Albon adds one to it. We are already more than a second faster than Hamilton. Porsche has already pulled away from Tsunoda. 3.5 seconds ahead. Sector 2. Albon runs wide again. Are you kidding me? Why? He's still...
Oh, they've run wide!
He's still only a second behind Magnussen. Bottas has just gone around Magnussen, but... Wait, Magnussen run wide?
No further rain expected.
Well, we both ran wide. Either way, time to push. Time to use the overtake.
And we think you can reduce lift and coast.
Okay, copy.
See if we can get away with not overheating the tires by pushing even harder. Track is drying up a little bit. Sun is coming out. But it's not supposed to be done raining just yet. Bottas, I think, is a harder overtake. He's had better pace than Alonso and Magnussen this whole time. He came from a ways back to catch and pass. Remember, he was with this grouping, which is now led by Leclerc, by the way, who has the fastest lap, and Russell. Surprised we don't have the fastest lap, but hey. Okay, overtake is on. This is the last one we need to do.
Overtake.
We're not going to catch Hamilton if he doesn't pit. Track is drying out slowly. It's still damp. We are expecting a little more rain. It's definitely dried out earlier than I expected. Somehow we were somehow doing that without using the overtake. But that is P2 for Albon. P2 for Albon. Now remember, had we not pushed, had we gone for the one stopper, if everyone somehow makes this work besides us, the one stopper, we would not have been in the lead. We would not have caught Hamilton. We would not have passed Hamilton had we not, had we just driven neutral. So we are in the position we would have been in right now. The 23.5 second gap to Hamilton is now 15, despite 2 mistakes already from Albon. We ran wide, lost a second. We walked up, lost 5.5 seconds. Track is now dry. There you go. Ooh, who's going to dive in 7 laps before the end? We're going to see what their sector times are. Tsunoda also into the pits. Is everybody going to pit? This is early enough, 7 laps to go. It's early enough, and that rain did not come. That rain did not come.
Okay, so box this lap.
Yes, okay, box.
Everybody's pitting. If it was 5 laps to go, I'd stay out. 4 laps to go, I'd stay out. I don't think there's enough to be gained. But it's 7 laps to go. At 7 laps to go, it's quite clear. It's quite clear that there's going to be some significant time differences, and everybody is pitting except Bottas. Everybody's pitting besides Bottas. Albon is in for his stop. 2.538. And that's going to bring us out in P3. Bottas still in the race lead, and we're going to be full attack the rest of the way. Alright, the tires, the one stopper works when you add in an extra stop to put on softs the last 7 laps of the race. Those 7 laps were where things were going to really fall off. You know, everybody was down around 40% there. So it was almost time. It was almost time. They could have stretched, you know, maybe 3 more laps before they were either going to fall off that cliff, or they were going to have to drive really slow the last, 4 laps, or pit for fresh intermediates right at the end. But the rain did stop, and that changed things. So my 2-stopper didn't quite pan out, but in Pourchaire's case, his 4 mistakes are the reason why he's down in P17. For Albon, 2 mistakes, a third making the mistake to push, but the pace-wise, Albon had enough of a pace difference that I'd say we lost maybe 6 seconds from where we would be. But otherwise, it wasn't a significant pace disadvantage. Those mistakes didn't cost us. Clearly, because, hello, we're running P2. The tactical correctness of how we approached the first stint and when we pit put us in prime position. We passed cars on track in that first stint, went in where we needed to, ran smooth. We pulled away a little bit, went in where we needed to, ran smooth, made no mistakes, and then pit at just the right time. That is what put us in second place. Then, despite 3 mistakes otherwise, the pushing rebalanced that out, and we're having an excellent race. Hamilton begins the last lap. One corner remaining for an excellent P2. P2. That is our best ever race finish. That's our second podium of the year. Alonso is going to get P3. Magnussen in the loss. Huge points for them in P4. Bottas just ahead of a hard-charging Leclerc, who caught this group pretty dang quickly. Leclerc started in last place in this race with the fresh engine. Russell gets P7, Perez P8, Sainz gets P9, and Vettel crosses the line for the final points-paying position. Verstappen steals the fastest lap. No bonus for P11 though. Norris is going to get P12, Gasly P13. Tsunoda, Schumacher, Stroll a lap down with Ricciardo, Guan Yu Zhou, Ocon all coming very closely together. Pourchaire, other than his latest mistake, was with those guys. Had almost caught them when he made that second pit stop, and was a ways back without it.
Okay, check it flag.
But Pourchaire had an abysmal race. Still managed to finish P17, which is, I think, the same spot he finished a year ago. I think we were 16th and 17th, so Pourchaire was 17th last year. Hamilton very clearly second place in the standings after that race win. Leclerc does score, but way behind. Nearly a 100-point gap, though, to Verstappen. So this championship's going to be wrapped up pretty early, you would think. No points for Verstappen today after his big mistake. Self-inflicted on that one. Russell is P6. Albon up to P7 now in that big midfield battle of 4. Pretty good gap to Gasly after Gasly did not score. But the other two, Alonso and Bottas, both scored well. They both managed to score well. Albon and Alonso were the back end of the two, now the front end of the two, with Bottas and Gasly both dropping down. Magnussen, huge points gain. Porsche down to P13 in the standings. The Aston Martin pair, the only ones yet to score any points this season, with Tsunoda a single 10th place finish. Ricciardo has 7 points. And in the Constructors, Red Bull just 4 points in this race, but Mercedes only not fully capitalizing, just 31 points there, but they move into second place ahead of Ferrari, 10 points clear with a big gap to Alfa Romeo, but they get a very solid 25. Alpine still 5th. No points today, and we get a wonderful 18-point performance that we'd already pretty much written off 7th place on down, but you can really write it off now as Haas jumps from 9th to 7th, but only 1 point closer than, 2 points closer than where AlphaTauri started the day. But that's a huge gap. I mean, almost 60 points behind us. That's not happening in these last, 9 races. So those guys, they're done. Top 6 confirmed. Alpine? Could we get back ahead of them? I did not think we would be in this type of position again this season. But again, not many upgrades coming the rest of the way. So where we'll be at the end of the year, anybody's guess right now. But it's looking like 5th or 6th. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.